Let's make a start, shall we? It's a pleasure to see you all tonight. Thanks so much for coming out. And welcome to the Spirit. Nuts and bolts. Oh, I didn't draw up the nuts and bolts. Because that was a good way that Zach used to waste heaps of time. He was drawing very accurate 3D images of nuts and bolts on the board. That's all right. Instead, I drew some Hebrew words. Let's look at them instead. But yes, this is nuts and bolts. We're talking about sort of first principle stuff. Last time we covered God. 2 questions in relation to God. God's a big subject. And today we're going to cover the Spirit. So that's going to be fun. You want to have a go at that? Neshama, Ruach, Hakim. Ruach, that's a hit. So you got to end the Ruach and the ch. And that starts with the same letter, ch. You got to get the ch going on. So Hakim, yeah, Ruach. So let's do it once more. Neshama, Ruach, Hakim. Do you know what you just said? Oh, yes. The breath. Oh, by the way, I'm going this way because that's keeping it legit. That's Hebrew. The Spirit of life. The breath of the Spirit of life. What a cool little thing. Hey, I enjoy saying that. Shama Ruach Hakim. It just kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit. It's just kind of fun. This is actually found in a verse in the Bible. This is in Genesis. Perhaps you could look it up. I'd love to see what your Bibles say. Genesis 7:22. Doesn't have a particularly positive ring in this verse, flavour, but nevertheless, these Hebrew words are in there. Someone read Genesis 7:22 out. 7:22. Any version? I'm quite interested to hear what your version says.
King James.
King James.
All in whose nostrils was the breath of life.
All in whose. Ah, yes. So kind of negative going on here. We're talking about people that have died. But again, what I'm interested in is these words all together. Now, what you've got is all those all in the nostrils of. Yeah. Anyone else have anything different?
And Martin says the breath of the Spirit of life.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. That's what we need. So many of the Bibles completely miss out the words, and they'll hit one of these ones. So we need to produce some clarity here, because what we actually have is we've got 2 words that are translated Spirit. And I thought maybe tonight, seeing we've got people that are, this is a class base, people that know more than me. So let's just talk about these 2 words of Spirit. Now, we're talking about God's Spirit. The main spirit in the Bible is Ruach by sheer number. That is translated Spirit mainly. This Neshama is mainly translated breath, but it's also translated Spirit. This is also sometimes translated breath. It's a shambles. Translators have just made a mess of these words. And so here's a good example. Regarding God creating, NIV, by his breath the skies became fair. ESV, by his wind the heavens were made fair. New King James, by his Spirit he adorned the heavens. 3 words, and it's all Ruach in that particular case. Translators don't know what they're doing because they're confused. There's a heap of words that translators use, and we can get these 2 words mixed up, And I believe there's a problem there. It's really nice if this is separated out a bit more than it is. But still, they are very much connected and they work together very well, but they do have slightly different meanings. We are going to target the Ruach tonight because we are dealing with God's Spirit, and that is the main one found in the Bible.
So Darryn,
Yes.
this is on Bible Gateway, the complete Jewish Bible.
Mm-hmm.
They got everything in whose nostrils was the breath of the Spirit of life.
Good. Breath of the Spirit. They got everything.
They should have.
Yeah.
The Jewish.
Oh, the Jewish Bible. Excellent. Yeah, so all you have to do is look up Hebrew and you see the words side by side. And for some reason, the translators are kind of the same. Let's just go with breath, then that'll cover a little bit. Yeah, shame. It's a little bit of shame because they are there for a reason, those words. Only 20-something times. Heaps, right? But still. It does highlight, though, that spirit can be translated in many different ways. And it is because spirit does mean a lot of things, right? No wonder the translators have got issues. So let's start with a little bit of an exercise. I'd like you to put the word spirit in a sentence in terms of everyday life and not relate it to God just for the meantime and not relate it to alcohol. Have a go. I just want a sentence that involves spirit.
Somebody has a mean spirit.
Ooh. Somebody, talking about a person having a mean.
Names,
Who? Oh, no, okay, sorry. All right, that's a goodie. Someone's a mean spirit.
Who has become unwell and lost the spirit to live. Maybe
Lost the spirit?
Lost the spirit to live.
Yeah.
To communicate. Lost his.
So that's not necessarily meaning the dead, eh?
No.
Nah, lost the spirit. To live, I've got mean spirit, I like that one.
the underarm bowling wasn't in the spirit of cricket.
Spirit of the sport.
I think you said that, Steve.
Yeah. I'm saying it wasn't in the spirit.
And there's something about tins of petrol used to be called motor spirit.
Oh. I said the alcohol. I said the alcohol thing to try and avoid these comments.
That's not.
Well, it
Well,
is.
you can go to the petrol if you want.
Okay, that's a fair point. Yep.
That's not in the spirit of what the singing's all about.
Boom.
I know, well, when I was about 9 years old, I had a neighbour who had a cherry tree. And in the cherry season, myself and my brother used to climb the branches over our side of the fence. And he came to us one day and said, in the spirit of kindness, I'm not going to tell your mother and father.
Kindness. Ah, very good.
Well, it was on your side of the fence. He had it between one of his own.
Well, yeah, but it was his tree.
It's big game now in the law apparently, on your side of the fence.
The spirit of the law,
Yeah.
Spirit of
From the Lord. Yeah.
the Lord.
Of the law, L-A-W.
Breaking one of my rules there. Spirit of the law.
Did you say someone gave a spirited performance?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes, spirited performance.
Yes, that child was full of spirit.
Oh, yes.
spirited.
That's what I was looking for. Because that's the first one I thought of. Because I've got this little child.
With red hair.
Red hair, and she's got
Feisty.
spirit. So that was in connection with Sophie's?
Yeah.
What'd you say? It was
Spirited
Spirited performance, spirited child.
yeah, spirited performance. That was actually quite well said as well. Spirited performance.
And also, the horse was quite spirited.
Horse, the horse, yeah. So that's just spirited child, spirited horse.
Somebody being spirited out of the country.
Yeah.
That's another big way, yeah.
Never heard that.
Wasn't my.
What does that mean? Like on the plane? Or on a plane? No? Push it.
Well, like if somebody sneaks somebody out of like a communal gathering. So like the room might spirit us right away, like they disappeared without anybody noticing. They haven't made a grand farewell, they just spirited away.
Us older ones are well aware of that.
Funnily enough, these days that's called ghosted.
That is interesting. It's a just interesting connection to the King James Version, written 400 years ago, where they decided that spirit was a ghost. So King James, 400 years ago, were ghosting people.
Usually means that somebody was taken away with no explanation as to how they were taken. So if somebody was like trying to kidnap somebody or get them out of danger or something like that, you know, the SIS will go in and make contact, get them and spirit them away. before they're,
Take them away without trace.
See, what you said was, sorry, Ruth,
I was just gonna say, what about the spirit?
Spirit of madness, yeah.
Got the girl in it.
Mean spirit. There's, so what we've got here, yeah, we can sort of sort this out a little bit. We've got sort of emotions, mean, and you've got the madness,
character.
kindness.
The madness is mental illness.
That's emotions. You've actually got people, that's a person, and a horse came into that as well, and essentially. Performance and sport, not in the spirit. Yeah, that was actually quite well said, actually, when I think about that. Not in the spirit. Shall we? So, I mean, today we had such a cool exhort. We had a good vibe going on in there. We had what I was sitting there going, we've got the spirit of unity. Was anyone thinking that? Because I was thinking, I'm going to do this tonight. I was thinking spirit, spirit, spirit. And then Kurt's talking about unity, made a great job of that. And that came from the heart, didn't it? And it encouraged lots of talking. I could hear the spirit of unity being shared because people were talking about it. People were buzzing. Kurt was sharing. He was busy, wasn't he? Everyone was pitting him up. And he didn't get a chance to have a break after that. So today, from that, we really felt the spirit of unity. And it's such a full thing. It filled the room.
Yeah.
Can you break down, let's say you've got a little red-haired child, and she's a spirited child. What makes her spirited?
What's the energy?
Oh, yes. Energy, yep. Energy.
Yeah, which is where motor spirit comes from.
And yeah, she's not letting it go. She wants it.
Oh, it's true.
Okay.
Well,
Thank
it's
you.
kind of linked to the horse because the car has horsepower.
You guys have to stop there. Juliet. My girl? That's really good, Juliet. Because we're talking about a person. Yeah. They can be positive. They can have energy. Any other descriptive words of a spirited person? What?
It's linked to personality.
All right, so personality, is that even
Yeah, it's linked to hair colour, tone.
So it's genetic.
Other people's expectations of.
Yes, it is. Just other spirits.
anything else?
Movement.
Oh, yes. She moves, she doesn't stop.
It's a feeling.
We can feel it deeply.
Probably negatively, whereas she's feeling it positively.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Good example, like deep thinking.
Deep thinking, yeah. So it's a person can show spirit by deep thinking.
As after you read the words Bible, then you might stand up and you have a deep thinking and you feel that the spirit.
Oh, you feel it deep, don't you? You feel it. The feeling word comes into it. That really, isn't it interesting? Feeling. So I'm not going to put that under Lacey.
Not yet.
I mean, she's so deep thinking, I have no idea what's going on up there.
Well, they say that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
I said nothing new there.
This is more describing Lacey, but determined as well, like people who have
Oh.
got spirit, they'll go and
Determined.
just get on. Yeah.
So, strong will.
Yeah,
Determination.
They're risk takers.
Yeah, that
There's no
that's quite
fear.
easy.
There's no fear.
Yeah. No fear.
No fear.
And that can come from having older siblings as well.
Yeah.
I've noticed.
Yeah.
Because Ayla's the same. She's got a lot more confidence and she just goes for it with
Right.
her rough and tumble brothers. So.
A massive amount of things we've come up with to define spirited. The word spirited, we could go all night. I've life. I just think life. The little girl has got so much life.
Oh, it's in the scripture.
But you said someone said energy. So sorry.
Zoe Stevenson's like all those.
Yeah.
Pain.
Your dream, like your vision.
Aspirations.
You got that vision.
Oh, dreams.
The dream.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's really important. And that comes in, particularly when it comes to God, but that's us as well. We have dreams and we put them into action. It becomes us.
Yeah.
That's us. What we end up trying to achieve, eh? That's our spirit. So the idea that the reason for this is to tell you straight off the bat, this is like God. And I can actually draw some stuff across, positive, but we've got the personal, which is character, energy, which is huge. I'm going to go power here, movement, feelings, well, it's God, life, not hair colour, determined. So I was just thinking about how I could just sort of put this to people and go, you know what? A spirited person can really feel what God is in terms of his spirit. Now, this, in terms of God, times infinity. Is that infinity? Right, you think about positive movement, feeling, energy, power, times infinity. Lacey's got energy, but God's got power times infinity, life times infinity, right? So I just thought that was a way, an interesting way to kind of connect with what it is to be spirited, because we know God has spirit and he is spirit. We know that. When God, we talked about a wedding. Oh, no, I didn't do. We talked about today in the hall about how we felt such spirit and Jeremy and Jemima's wedding. There was a good spirit felt at that wedding. It fills the whole wedding. It's everything that comes together that makes that a spirited event. It's not just one or two things. God says in Jeremiah that he fills heaven and earth. When God walks into a room, and I don't want to take any disrespect away from him, what happens?
And spirits are lifted.
Yeah.
This person's fills.
Yeah. Think about all the attributes of God. Firstly, we would die because of his sheer power, right? But taking that away, if it's his spirit as we understand it now, it's all of those things of energy and life and uplifting and positiveness and character and love, because that's God's spirit. That's what we can feel from him when he walks into the earth. And he's said in Jeremiah that he has walked into the heaven and the earth. He fills heaven and earth. And how does he do that? By his spirit. I guess the point is that we come back to the big question that we asked yet last time. Is God physical or spiritual? But what we can and we didn't really come to a perfect agreed conclusion, but we know there is some element of physical and spiritual, and we can't decide there's both, it's all happening, but we do know that God dwells in heaven and he cannot be seen by us, otherwise we die. So we have to conclude that the Spirit is reaching out and filling the earth, and we're getting the benefit of it. It's God's Spirit, and it's amazing. So that was sort of the flow there. I'll just make sure, you know, who we are is what we think. And here's a really good verse about God. You know, I've got a mission going on with my van at home, and actually I've had to knock it on the head because it's been taking over my life. I've got too much going on. I'm thinking about, you know, doing all the servicing stuff to it, because I just bought a van. I want to do it up and do some stuff to it. I'm thinking about the servicing stuff. I'm thinking about putting wheels on it, putting guards, maybe modifying it and stuff. You know what? That loaded my brain up to another level. I researched it. I was on Trade Me looking for parts. I was just constantly, it took over my head. And then, of course, I got the parts and then I started doing it. When we think about something and we do it, there's this connection of spirit. Now, spirit can be mind. Yeah. Ruach can be translated mind as well, which is very interesting. And I just thought I'd share this verse with regard to God and his mind. It's Isaiah 14. 24, Isaiah 14:24. God says, as I have planned, so shall it be. And as I have purposed, so shall it stand. It's in God's mind to do the things that he does, and so it happens. And we know because of his Spirit. He has filled his Spirit with the heaven and earth, filled our abode with his Spirit. And so therefore God's work that he's done with his Spirit is evident, and it represents his thinking. It represents everything he stands for and wants to achieve his purpose. So has everyone got that one? Isaiah 14:24. As I have planned, so shall it be, and as I have purposed. I guess just the technical thing is that how does this happen? If he's in heaven, it is his Spirit. I just want to do a little bit more Hebrew. How's that? Everyone have anything more on the?
Except that they're all invisible. But lazy's not invisible, they're all those components.
Great point.
You said invisible at the beginning.
That's right. I'm trying to make them as visible as possible. But you made a very good point, because where does all this stuff come from? We can't see it. It comes from, and we can see the results and feel the results. They're invisible. That's such a good point. That does come up with Spirit really well, isn't it?
Does Ruach and Neshama appear together in other spots, or is it
10 times.
10 times?
Very interesting. I think I might do that for you guys. Do you want to do the exercise? See all the 10 times it is? Yeah, we'll do that, but not just right now. You know how I used to do the picture thing? Or I still do. Not going to do it this time. It can be a little bit challenging. As in, okay, well, Resh is a head. That is a nail, and that is a fence. Originally written in pictorial Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, that's how it was written. Try and make sense of that. But it's doable, but it takes a lot of work. I use this now after I've done all my studying. After I've got into everything, I've looked at all avenues as much as I can, and then I come back to this, because what you can get into trouble with here is making stuff up. You look at pictures and you want it to connect in a certain way. So I've stopped doing it as quickly and abruptly as I used to. What I've learned is really cool is looking at other Hebrew words that are made up of the same root word. Now this is much more solid. and much more interesting. So ruach, the spirit, also means, I'm just going to write this one here, quite intently, the wind, right? Same word, ruach, spirit, ruach, wind. When I say wind, I'm talking like the wind, not just the wind. The wind that actually, a pretty powerful wind at one point, it blew the Red Sea apart. But then there was a gentle wind. There was the east wind that caused the famine of Egypt. There was a wind that happened at the storm of Elijah. So wind, just basic, simple wind. Here's another word. Arak. Arak. It means traveller. Here's another word. Raka means millstone. And here's another word. Moon.
So these are all from the root word from which you build ruach.
Yeah, I'll struggle with the root. The root word actually is these two letters here. So resh. So this has been put in between the root word, this vav. Resh and the het are the root word. So the resh and the het are here with an aleph in the front to make traveller. Still made from the root word of spirit. The root word here is this one. And that means millstone. And this one here, the last two, yara, with the yod in front of it, moon. Can we see anything that joins these words together? Is there anything that connects them?
Round.
Ooh. Yep, and a millstone is, I've seen one, like a big donut. Traveller.
Around the world, I'm good. Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Sweet.
They usually end up back at their destination, where they started from.
Yep.
And the wind is like a tornado.
Okay.
And it also blows around the earth.
So you've already picked it up. There's this connection between circular motion. Motion.
Energy.
I was wondering if someone's going to bring up John Michael's exhaust. Well, okay, so the traveller, when you think about it, can go around the work. And if a traveller goes out, sometimes he goes back home. So that's a circuit. But I kind of see a traveller also going straight as well. But either way, still kind of fits. Traveller is on a designated path, as these are in motion. And the wind, wow, the wind, that just sums everything up, doesn't it? So,
Fix things up along the way.
so we have, yeah.
It did all
Who are the
that.
traveller?
The wind. No, the wind.
Oh, the wind, yeah, cool. Yeah, the wind, I mean, how many things, the wind can travel in a straight line, but the wind goes around in circles. We've got to think about circles.
One time, this word is translated whirlwind in the KJV.
Oh, cool. Yep.
I'm just going to look up where. No, many, yeah, one other times. Whirlwind is jolly Elijah.
Oh, yeah, and the chariot.
So, can I just ask, Andrew said something about an exhort. What was that?
John Pokel's
Oh, John Patton's, okay.
exhort of circles and lines.
So you're going around in circles unless you've got God with you.
Yeah, that's right. So God breaks that circle and you can go on more of a linear path and get to your destination rather than going round, round, and round, round. Yeah, we've got this definite connection of movement. That there's a lot of circular motion, repeating. It's all controlled. They all have designated paths, planned routes. So there is control. And the wind, again, what else travels in circles?
My brain.
Yeah. Great. Our heart pumps blood and goes over and over and over again. Oceans, the tides, earth turns. Let's keep it going. Because we know where we're heading with this, isn't it?
Solar system, life.
Beautiful. Think big. Sun, earth rotating, and the moon rotates, as it's already mentioned here. The millstone goes round and round and round, grinding and grinding and grinding. It never stops. Potter's wheel. Yeah, well, there we go. It works. Very much so.
Ecclesiastes 12:7 says the dust returns to the ground it came from. The spirit returns to God who gave it. So
Yeah.
it's come down and then returned.
There we go. So God set this thing in motion, and it's a circle of life. The water cycle, you name it, and you name it, and God is in control of it with His Spirit. His Spirit has filled all of Earth. Now, I mean, we don't need to do some of these quotes, but how He created Earth, He created with His Spirit, and so as a result, we have circular motion, cycles and paths, humans looking inside, physical things outside, life and death. It's all cycles and it's all controlled. Just something really interesting in the Hebrew, the way that those words connect when you think, wow, how do they connect? And the Hebrew draws all this together to fill out the meaning of perhaps what is going on and help us to understand what the Spirit is and what it does. Okay. The wind is really good because it's seasonal as well. So it's so amazing to think that the wind and God's Spirit can be the same, but of course it is. It's invisible. It travels in circles, it travels randomly, it travels with great power and is quite destructive, but it's also very gentle at times as well. So the wind is a great description of actually God's Spirit. And so why it's the same word makes a whole lot of sense to me. And why the translators go, it's wind, this wind's blowing around, it's got to be ruach. Now it's God working, it's ruach.
Invisible as well. The wind, like we see the result.
Perfect, yeah.
And we see what it's doing. And we can feel it.
Yeah.
We can't see it. Okay, we don't know where it's coming from. We don't know where it's going.
Exactly. It fits in every way, doesn't it? So if you're really struggling to grasp the Spirit, which I am, it's hard to get your head around what it is and what it's doing and how it emits from God and does all this stuff. The wind. Just think about the wind. You can't even see it, but you know everything about it. Even just air. We know air has weight. We know air supports combustion. We know a lot about air. We breathe it every couple of seconds. We can't see it, but it does so much. It creates life as well. And so that very much is a part of God's Spirit, but a very good thing to describe it in the fullest of sense as well. So God not only creates, I think we've got that, He sustains life with His Spirit. He's present everywhere as a result of Spirit. Where can I hide from your Spirit? David says. Where? You know everything about me. How is it then that God can be with all of us? He says to Moses, I'm with you. But there is how many people on this planet and how many people God wants to work with? I am with you. And so I come back to the traveller a little bit and go, are we doing circles? Are we doing linear paths? If God is with us. And perhaps understanding John Vogel's approach, we are probably travelling along a straight line if God is with us. We are actually heading somewhere. We are not rotating, we have purpose. What purpose? God's purpose. That's the question. Yeah. Again, we embrace His Spirit. We feel His Spirit. We're part of it. Let's do the exercise. So I forgot. You want to do the exercise of these two words. Yeah. So a couple of groups. Few minutes in 3 groups. 10 verses. I want you to look them up in your groups. So 3 verses, 3 groups. So maybe one roughly this group. That group going on there. You decide where you want to go.
All right. I'll read from here. It's the why will continue even, neither will I should fail forming and the style which I have made.
There is 2 words
The ruach should fail
translated
means
spirit,
condition.
and the shama, which is more common. Just to say there's a determined difference between the 2.
Trying to,
Some 18, 10.
It's interesting.
we are doing activities. I'll type one in for you at home.
You're right.
It's good.
It's really hard to see how the distinguish on the. Because it's hard to see in it. But the distinguish these.
Yeah.
Perhaps the content. But I'm actually asking you guys. Can you?
Yeah, all right. So you can work out from what are the two words, worry about.
And
Something that.
who might be different? Say, translated the same.
I don't know which bits are what.
Yeah, I'll read it. See appears.
But why are they here? Now, the underlying one seems to be
The sharp glass of the underlying. So then the sharp.
Yeah, very.
Spirit has made me God. God's creative work included in our facility. Oh, yeah, good. All right. Give you another one, Robert and Sharon. Isaiah, this one. We struggled with this, so good luck.
We've got a note in the No, it's not. We were just thinking about.
Yeah, and you know, Shama.
It's that.
And there's no rule in that good.
So again, you have Ruach and Neshama. What are the difference? What's the difference between those two words being used in a similar sort of way in Isaiah?
Breathe. Often it's breathe, the Shama will breathe on anything else. So the one where he's breathing into humans, it's Neshama.
Although in the margin of my Bible, all the words nostrils are connected to anger.
Yeah.
So nostrils is a Hebrew way of, you know how people get angry and their nostrils flip? That's a Hebrew physical way of expressing anger. So they'll actually have to draw a picture of the nose or something in their pictures to express anger.
But that's not how we've been living in.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Move them close to water.
So yeah, you need lots of stuff.
No.
It's isn't it interesting
Because I
because
always thought
it's
that was
moving.
what. Moving.
Yeah, it's-
Yeah, it's not breathing, I guess it's so breathing. When you breathe, you create.
Yes, it's how connected they are. They're so magnetic.
I've left the easiest one to last. That's all place.
Oh, you did some hanging.
Yeah.
It's
and one does something and the other does something else.
One was made, one was
Yeah, one makes it, one is like life. So.
Like they all have-
Ruach and then the Shama.
So it's right.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Ruach being created in the Shama,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
because it's the Shama in Genesis
yeah,
that that he became a living soul.
just to make it physical being, yeah.
Yeah, so he created man out of the dust of the ground and he breathed into it.
But Genesis 1 is Ruach.
Yeah.
That's what you
Oh,
see.
yeah.
Moved on the spirit.
It's-
Moved.
Genesis 1.
Spirit of one, moved on to the right.
Oh, yes, and that's what-
It's creation.
created because going over the waters to create stuff.
Here's the easiest one for anyone that wants to tackle Job 33.
And that's the bread.
It's somewhere.
Yeah, we had that. Last one.
So, like, it's those ones that are underlined.
Spirit.
Underline one consecutive.
Last.
There's a quite a cool summary one we thought. See how you go with explaining that one.
Okay, everybody? Shall we like come back and just perhaps share a little bit about what you think? I'd love to hear about.
I understand. You've got some answers here, by the way, on some of these. So,
We breathe the Spirit of God. Oh, so you gave them that.
I gave them a cover again.
Oh, good one, guys. There's so much of this in the Bible. If we grieve the Spirit of God, His character word, He will take away your breath. Life. That's from Robert and Sharon.
Well, Robert, Sharon said she here.
Well done, Sharon. You're spiritually connected, virtually and here. Spirit and person. Wow. And Robert's just here in spirit. Excellent. What did you come up with? Just perhaps a point from each one.
Well, you can breathe into somebody.
Yep.
But it doesn't equal life. So this person is drowned, you can breathe into them, give them all the mouth to mouth. But it's got to have the second aspect of life. So it's going to be the breath of life, not just the breath.
Right.
Extra bit in
Extra bit. I like the way you said that, the extra bit. Yep. And Josh, do you want to read out the underlined verse I gave you on that one? No.
Nah, let's do it again. Job 33 verse 4, the Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life.
You guys, what was your little summary?
The spirit, the ruach, is the creative act, and the breath, the neshama, is the giving of life to the creative thing. Because in Genesis, when it says that God made man in the dust of the ground and breathed, that's that neshama, into him the breath of God, and he became a living soul. So he wasn't a living soul until he had the neshama, and it's the same neshama word as in Job.
Right, very important for the neshama to complete that.
Whereas when the spirit moved on the face of the waters, that was the ruach. So we're about to have a creative act of the water.
Yeah, well done.
So what happens to a baby that jiggles around and kicks you like rugby kicks inside? And so if there's some form of life, but if it doesn't breathe, it's stillborn. How does that work?
The mother is breathing
Doesn't
for
have an neshama. Doesn't have neshama. Yeah.
It does by default, because the mother is breathing for it.
Yeah.
So it's getting the breath through. the
I'm not going to be up here and give you the answer for any of us, trust me. It's still quite big, and I've just found this, and I'm pretty keen to get to the bottom of it, and you guys are helping me. Group at the back, bit of a summary. Did you come up with anything different?
No, pretty much the same.
Yep.
Same lines as.
Yep.
the script.
You have the, who? That's a Genesis one. You underlined one, what did that say?
Still got the line on.
So I'm going to read it. Is it underlined?
Which would be on the line, that way.
Yeah, I've underlined the quote.
There is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty gives him understanding.
Understanding. Another level, isn't it? So Genesis,
Understanding?
let's say it again, Jamal, that's a really good one.
There is a spirit in man, and the inspiration, the Shama, of the Almighty gives him understanding.
Inspiration of the Almighty gives them understanding. There is spirit in man, can't deny that. The neshama gives them understanding.
What chapter and verse is that?
John.
Genesis chapter 6.
What one was it, July, sorry, 33? Oh, 32 verse 8.
How many of these in Job, eh?
Yeah.
Incredible. Job really dug deep when it comes to getting to know God and understanding his spirit, creation, everything. Yeah, he's definitely one to look at. So, Genesis chapter 6, just before the 7:22, which is this one here, the breath of the spirit of life, which is talking about the people that died in the flood that was taken away from them. In Genesis chapter 6, we have this one, verse 17. Behold, I will bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which is the breath of life. This is what God's going to do to the flood, in the flood, and that's the ruach of life. It's very different to the breath of life that was breathed into Adam, which was the neshama of life.
Sorry, what verse are you on?
6:17. So God is explaining what's happening here in the flood.
And that's what?
Ruach. Ruach of life under heaven. Everything that is on earth shall die, but I will establish my covenant with you. Okay, so think about that. Everything on earth is going to die. 7:22, and this is the one that's up here. Everything on dry land in whose nostrils was the breath of life. Remember, the neshama is now here. It's just giving a little bit more information. And I haven't dialed it yet, but I believe in 7:22, he's talking about humans, people. And in the other one, he's talking a more broader sense of everything dying on earth. Everything, like animals, everything that can breathe.
Well, I guess, no, maybe I'm wrong. It's only Adam was given the breath through the nostrils to become a living soul.
Right.
Like the animal creation, it says they were created, but it doesn't say that God breathed into them the breath of life. It doesn't specify that.
Doesn't specify. They just were alive because of the ruach, the spirit.
Yeah, the
Yep.
spirit. They're maintained by the spirit, but man has the breath, the special
So what I
something.
was leaning towards here is that neshama is specific to humans
Oh, yeah.
and ruach is in humans,
But
but in everything else as well. Humans are special. They have the neshama as well. They have the spirit of life and the breath of life. Now, wouldn't it be interesting if the root word of neshama had something a bit more personal about God? Wouldn't it be interesting, just like the root words over here, we talked about movement and how to beef out what we're talking about in terms of the spirit and how it works? Wouldn't it be interesting over here in neshama if there was a root, perhaps a root word or another word connected to that word that highlights God's personal connection? And well, it's there. Pretty cool, because this word is the root word to that word, neshama, and it is the word shem,
Oh, yeah.
and it is the name. Yeah, name. God breathed into him, man, his name. He didn't do it to the animals because man is the dominion, is the dominant creator. He is the one to represent God because he is in the likeness of God, as we know. But it's more than that now. And this is the most exciting thing about it. It's more than that. God doesn't just make us like this and that's it. He breathes into us a little bit of his character, his name. Not all of it. We know we don't have all elements of his name, because his name is huge. His name is everything. His name is his reputation, character, and authority. It's massive. It's his great power, and it's his word. But what we do have is little snippets of character, little pieces of his name. And he asks us to represent him. That's the difference. And this is where I think that if you work backwards, I'm sorry for putting you through that, but if you work backwards, start there, and then think about what's going on with these two words, spirit, sometimes both spirit, then we know that this spirit is specific to God giving us life. His name, his character, by way of wanting us to represent him.
So is this genetic imprint?
Genetic? Yeah. Well,
Well, it's what makes man different to them.
Yeah.
And it matches with that Job passage about the
Understanding. Exactly. Isn't that
And
good?
that's what God's wanting to work.
Yeah. It makes us a little bit more special. And we've been talking about the dominion of man and the representation of man and the likeness, but there's more. I could honestly say that all of you have little snippets of God's character. We all do, and together, that's why he wants us to be together, by the way, because we can bring together all the little elements that we have of God's love. Some of us have patience, some of us have long suffering, and some don't. So we connect together, sharing all these elements of God's character, and he's given us a little bit of that because he's breathed it into us. We have it to get us on our way to represent him. Well on our way. We're very fortunate.
What's the verse that talks about the man that's without understanding, that's like an animal, or something like that?
All right.
Something like that?
It's interesting.
So if you don't have you have the capability of understanding, if you don't have the willingness to want to understand, then your end is pretty much the same as the animal.
Mm.
It sort of adds to what Kurt was saying this morning, doesn't it, about that unity?
Yeah.
We've all got
Yes, exactly.
got a piece of the character, even more reason to have unity.
Yeah. Whether we like it or not, we have God's character. We know that little bits of it. But we've got to be careful that we don't breathe in another type of breath. And this came up, I'll just finish real quickly with this, but Justin talks about the two breaths that we can breathe in. There's only two breaths, and we have to breathe. So we will take in one of them, the breath of God, or the breath of the adversary, or the evildoer, the influence, the worldly influence, that breath. So we have to be careful that we're not taking in the name of the evildoer, then their character. You know what I mean? In that sense. So, but whether we like it or not, we've got it because he breathed it into us. We've just got to work with it, and build it, and grow it. Yeah, I hope you found that helpful.
And that goes back to what that was saying, you know, we had that discussion about why people believe in God. And one of the reasons that came up was that we as humans like to think of something that's greater than us and outside ourselves. And there was that passage which says that there's something planted in the heart of man, hope or something. But this makes sense. If actually what makes us living has an element of God in it, then we are by nature going to search for a greater spirit that's beyond us.
Yes.
You know, there's actually something in us that he put there, which is why the animals don't form religions.
Where it said God put eternity in the heart of man.
No, that's transcendent.
What's that there?
God put eternity in the heart of man.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep.
the King James Version,
Yep.
that might be what that is.
Oh, there must be some wonderful connections to that, I'm sure, yeah. To really highlight that, yeah.
Interesting to see what the word for eternity was.
Mm.
I'll look it up. It's a good phone, it's not really-
So we can highlight what it is to worship God in spirit, can't we? His name, what he's breathed into us, to exercise his name and from inside and to grow it. That's how we worship him, by eventually growing towards representing him like Jesus. But we can only do that in his name, obviously, but we can grow in that to that end. So that's it. That's all I have at this stage. Thank you.
That's all. Thanks.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
I just want you to go out here thinking you're really special. Because you are. And highlight the unity again, how much we need each other. Yeah. So who wants to close in prayer? Would you be okay closing in prayer? Thank you very much. And then we'll have some supper. Cheers.
Heavenly Father, we come to you now to thank you for your provisions, particularly at this time of supper, where we can enjoy a cup of tea and a snack. But we're mindful, Father, that this is short-lived, and the provisions you give us are primarily to sustain the life you give us, the state that you have given to each of us, but for a short time. And we marvel at this. We cannot understand what makes each of us different to another, but we know that you have given us to each other to be here as a group, to think on your word and to exchange your opinions of what that state of life might be. For that state of life, Father, we accept does not exist without your spirit or power. That we are grateful and know that you gave us that spirit to give us life at the beginning, which we accept as your breath, for the act of giving us each our existence. We pray, Father, when all is said and done, when our time is up, that we might be able to reflect back to you something that was worthy of the breath of the Spirit of life. We ask this and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Barry. Yeah. Finish. It's okay, guys. Thanks for helping me.
It's like also lots of time to prepare these.
Perhaps this week.
Not perhaps. after the deep thing.
So the show's just like when you get into something